Great, good morning and welcome everybody. My name is Dale Medeiros. I'm a senior regional planner for the Northern Virginia Regional Commission, the NVRC, and we're a regional council of governments representing the 13 counties, cities and towns and 2.5 million people of Northern Virginia. And we're here today because the local governments of our region have prioritized eliminating single-use plastic litter from the waters of the Chesapeake. And in addition, this past March, Virginia Governor Northam released an executive order requiring the phase out of single-use plastics by state government agencies. The directive is broad, it focuses on disposable plastic bags, single-use plastic and polystyrene food containers, plastic straws and utensils, and single-use plastic water bottles. In addition, Virginia state agencies will also develop a report on recommendations for reducing waste and diverting it from landfills. So why a webinar with the city of Kiel, Germany? So like many local governments across the United States, those in Northern Virginia have been thrust onto the global stage by the forces of climate change, public health pandemic, social inclusion, infrastructure revitalization, education, economic development, and waste management. And historically, German cities like Kiel have been pioneers in the collection, recycling, and mitigation of municipal solid waste. And over 20 years, NVRC has pursued a global engagement model that has endeavored to find, understand, and apply technical and policy innovations like those from Kiel, Germany, and try to focus them and apply them in our region. So today we're really lucky. We have Tatjana Allers from the city of Kiel. She's here to share with us the city's leadership and work with the planning and operationalization of zero waste management policies, especially as it relates to single-use plastics in the marine environment. Ms. Allers is a native of northern Germany, the city of Buxtehude, it's close to Hamburg, and now works in the city of Kiel's environment offices, and she directs the city of Kiel's Zero Waste Management Initiative. We hope this webinar will highlight some of the special aspects of the city's waste management programs, particularly as they relate to single-use plastics for cities along coasts. We also hope that this webinar will stimulate further interest in how we in the US, in Northern Virginia in particular, might consider potential applications of any of the lessons that Tatjana shares with us this morning. I'd like to point out that this is the start of a longer-term effort to focus on the transfer and application of local level sustainability programs from overseas to the Northern Virginia region. So for instance, on the 21st of September, we will be organizing a follow-up webinar on how applied research in the Baltic Sea region on microplastics has the potential to merge with equivalent research from the Chesapeake region. So I'd like to turn it back over to Debbie, who's going to steer the rest of the program for the webinar. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be able to present with Dale and Tatjana and welcome all of you to this session. And again, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat. And we will have about a half an hour at the end to respond. And I staff the Northern Virginia Waste Management Board, which is a group of the Solid Waste Management Planning Unit directors in Northern Virginia. And so we're just thrilled to have Tatjana and have the subject of plastic waste being addressed by on an international level. So Tatjana, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Debbie and Dale. I will just quickly share my screen. I hope you can see my full screen right now. Perfect.
It looks perfect.
Okay, so thank you very much again for inviting me to today's webinar. I'm very excited to have that exchange with you today. Just a few sentences about myself. My name is Tatjana Allers and I'm the Zero Waste Project Manager at the Environmental Protection Department of the state capital Kiel in Germany. I'm extremely excited to be here with you today because in my master's program, I studied global sustainability sciences, which was a double degree program between the Leuphana University in Lüneburg, which is a small town in Germany, and the Arizona State University, which is right on the other side from Northern Virginia, but still I'm extremely happy to have an international exchange with the United States today. And yeah, that's just a few words about myself. For today's presentation, I structured my presentation a little bit. So first of all, I would like to give you some impressions about the city of Kiel. So that those of you who might not know Kiel, has a chance to get to know our city a little bit. Then I will talk a little bit about about my project, which is Kiel on its way to become a zero waste city. I then have some background information about the status quo on waste separation here in Kiel and in Germany in general. Then I will have a rather dry part about some new legislations about single-use plastics and circular economy. And then I will also talk a little bit about existing projects about single-use plastics, and then about some measures that we implemented in our zero waste strategy in order to reduce the single-use plastics in Kiel. Yeah, just to give you a little insight about our city. So the city of Kiel is the city of Kiel is the capital of the northernmost German federal state, which is called Schleswig-Holstein, and it is located along the 17-kilometer long Kiel Fjord, which you can see on the picture right here, and which flows into the Baltic Sea. And the location of Kiel near the Baltic Sea is actually why there's a lot of tourism here and shipping industry. And Kiel is also quite important for the German marine base. So here I just brought some pictures to give you some impressions from Kiel. On the top left picture, you can see the Kiel Fjord, which divides the city into the eastern bank and the western bank. And actually there's only one bridge at the very beginning of the fjord, where you can cross the fjord, but then there are also two different ferry routes so that you have the chance to get from one side to the other without going the whole way around. And then on the top right picture, you can see that Kiel also has some beautiful beaches, which are very popular in summer. But then, at least here in Germany, fall is coming. It's already the sense of fall in the air, but it's still very nice to be on the beaches in fall. Then on the bottom left picture, you can see the sailing parade of the famous Kiel Week. I think maybe some of you have heard about the Kiel Week before. It's actually the biggest regatta in the world, and once a year the famous event, the Kiel Week, takes place. And it is not only a sailing event, but it has also kind of a festival with a lot of music, booze, and program. So it's always very nice here in Kiel when we have our Kiel Week. And then on the bottom right picture, you can see one of our ferries. So Kiel has several ports, which is why the city is very important for tourism. And there are daily ferry trips that go to Sweden or to Norway and to Lithuania. But then there are also many cruise ships that start their trips in Kiel. And in addition to tourism, the ports are also very important for the economy. So there are many cargo ships, for example, also because of the Kiel Canal, which connects the North Sea and the Baltic Sea with one another. And so, we've got a lot of ships around, and that's also very nice. This was only a very short impression about Kiel, and what I am working on 5 days a week is our zero waste project. So the city of Kiel has decided to become a so-called zero waste city. And in Germany, we are the first city that decided to become a zero waste city. And the decision to become a zero waste city was made in September 2018. And since then, we've been working on developing a zero waste strategy for Kiel. And in August last year, we then published our 270 pages long strategy, which includes several measures for waste reduction and resource efficiency. And in November 2020, we reached our biggest milestone, because this was when the Kiel Council decided upon our zero waste strategy. And the primary goal, of course, in becoming a zero waste city is to avoid and reduce waste. But then the secondary goal is also to get an official certification of zero waste city. And you can see the logo of the European network Zero Waste Europe here on the bottom left. This is an European NGO that certifies cities who commit themselves in becoming a zero waste city. And all over Europe, there are almost 400 municipalities that are already member in this NGO. And Kiel now, as I said, wants to become the very first city in Germany who is a zero waste city. And just a few weeks ago, we already reached our first milestone in becoming a zero waste city, because we've been certified as zero waste candidate city. And I hope that in the beginning of next year, maybe we will get the full certification as zero waste city. Yeah, but it always must be said that a zero waste city is not a city in which no waste exists anymore at all. So zero waste is more like a vision. So what a zero waste city commits itself to is to continuously reduce the amount of waste, to improve separate waste collection. And then what is also very important is to promote a rethinking on the subject of waste. And in order to do so, a zero waste city establishes a concrete and verifiable self-commitment. And this is what we have done with our zero waste strategy. It's a 270 pages long concept that we developed. And the guiding principle of zero waste is actually shown in the zero waste hierarchy. Maybe some of you know the zero waste hierarchy in the European Union and also in the German law. It's actually, it's part of the law, but in practice it's not really lived. So in the zero waste hierarchy says that in the first place, you should always try to prevent waste. And only if you can't prevent it, then you should reuse the products and materials. And then only if you can't reuse them, you should recycle them so that the materials go back into the resource cycle. And the last two steps of the hierarchy are actually the steps that we absolutely do not want in a zero waste strategy. So that's other recovery, which is basically incineration of waste where all the resources are being lost, or the disposal on landfills. Yeah, and as I said, in our zero waste strategy, I've shown the title page here. It's a 270 pages long book, which includes more than 100 measures that we defined in order to reduce our waste. And we structured our measures and also our goals into 5 different sectors that basically cover the whole city. So we developed measures for waste system transformation, but we also have measures to reduce the waste in public administration, in private households, in educational institutions, and then also in the industrial sector. So we've got industry, trade, and events in this sector. And then we also developed goals for each of these sectors. But beneath these sector goals, we also have two main objectives. And that's on the one hand that we want to reduce our total amount of waste per capita and per year by an average of 15% by 2035. And then we also want to halve our household and commercial waste, which is also called residual waste, by 2035. And then we want to reduce it to less than 50 kilograms per capita per year in the long term. And right now we have around 170 kilograms of residual waste. So you can see that achieving 50 kilograms per capita and year is quite ambitious. But yeah, that's where we want to get in the long term. Yeah, right now we are still in the very beginning of the implementation phase of our strategy. As I said, it was only completed in last summer and then decided upon in November. So we are right in the beginning of the implementation phase. And this is why most of our measures are not yet realized. But we will have a closer look on some of these measures that are related to single-use plastics later on. Yeah, for the status quo in waste separation, I would like to show you one diagram. So here you can see that we have around 123,000 tons of municipal solid waste per year, which means that we have nearly 500 kilograms of municipal solid waste per capita per year. And this only includes the waste that is collected by the municipal waste company, who is mainly in charge of the household waste. And they only collect a little part of the commercial waste. And most of the commercial waste is collected by private waste companies. And all of that data is not included in these data here. So this is really just what the municipal waste company collects. And yeah, you can see that most of the waste is household and commercial waste. So this is the residual waste. And this is actually the waste that cannot be recycled, at least in theory. In practice, people don't always separate their waste correctly, so that recyclable waste also ends up in this waste fraction to some extent. But this is all the waste that is being incinerated in our local incineration plant. And from a zero waste perspective, this waste fraction definitely has to be reduced in order to become a zero waste city. Yeah, for the waste separation in Germany in general, you can say that the waste separation system is rather complex, and there are a lot of different options for disposal, especially for household waste. Yeah, I tried to show some very basics here. So in general, there is the domestic collection within the households, and the waste is already collected separately at the private household. So we collect paper, cardboard, and paperboard, which goes into a blue bin. Then we separate residual waste, which is a black or gray bin. Then we have packaging waste in a yellow bin. And sometimes in Kiel we have this. We also collect organic waste in either a green or a brown bin. And yeah, these different containers are then collected by the waste collection vehicles. And yeah, you can see that most of the waste is household and commercial waste. So in general, there is the domestic collection within the households, and the waste is already collected separately at the private household. So we collect paper, cardboard, and paperboard, which goes into a blue bin. Then we separate residual waste, which is a black or gray bin. And sometimes in Kiel we have this. We also collect organic waste in either a green or a brown bin. And yeah, these different containers are then collected by the waste collection And then for bulky waste, we also have the option to get it collected from home. Usually this is free for maybe 1 or 2 times per year. So you just have to make an appointment with the local waste management company and let them know that you have bulky waste. And then you're allowed to put it outside on the curbside, and the municipal company will come and pick it up. And especially for recyclables, there are also a lot of other options for disposal. And in the following slides, yeah, we will have a closer look at some of them. So for batteries, that's one really nice example. It's usually the case that there are municipal drop-off points for batteries in Germany, for example, at recycling centers. But then also there are retail drop-offs, because every store that sells battery is also obligated in Germany to provide infrastructure to collect old batteries too. And in this year, the German battery law was revised, and the new return target now for battery is at 50%. So that means that the producers of batteries are obliged to make sure that at least 50% of the batteries they produce are then also being collected. And yeah, apart from normal household batteries, we also have car batteries. And that's also very interesting because there's a deposit system for car batteries. So whenever you have to change your old car batteries, you can go into a store, get a new one, and you have the chance to get rid of your old one here. And if you don't, if you don't return an old battery when you buy a new one, you are even being charged with, I think, around €7. So this really makes people bring back their old batteries. And similar to the old batteries, it's yeah, quite similar with e-waste. So there are municipal drop-off points where everyone can bring their electronical waste free of charge. In Kiel, there's also a curbside collection that is similar to the bulky waste collection that I presented earlier. So you just have to make an appointment with your local waste company, and then they will come and pick up your electronical waste. And then depending on the size of a store, also stores that sell electronical devices are also obliged to take back your old electronical waste. And this really depends on the size of the store on the one hand, and then on the size of the electronical scrap. So yeah, that's also another option to get rid of your electronical waste. And what I think is very interesting is that this also applies to online retailers. So you can even order your new washing machine or whatever online and get it delivered to your home, and they are then also obliged to take back your old one. Yeah, for glass and textile waste, there are public collection points, which you can see on these pictures here. They are actually located all throughout the whole city. So that's always very easy to get rid of those. And glass can be separated according to its color for better recycling. So apparently on this picture here, they have more green and brown glasses than transparent ones. Yeah, so that's how we collect our glasses, but then this is only for single-use glasses, because for reusable glasses, we have another deposit system. So you only get rid of your single-use glass bottles in these containers here. Yeah, and then in Kiel, we also have 2 recycling centers. So the inhabitants of Kiel can dispose most of their recyclables free of charge in these 2 recycling centers. And they collect around 30 different recyclables. Then beneath the 2 recycling centers, we also have a drop-off point for pollutant and hazardous waste. So that's a special drop-off point. And in addition to the special drop-off point for pollutant waste, there's also a special car, which you can see on the top, on the bottom right picture, that drives around the city and collects pollutant waste as well. Yeah, and then I would like to present you another rather special form for disposal, which is actually for reusable waste. And I put waste in brackets here because it's not actually waste. Yeah, but it's just, I call it waste, but it's not waste because it's just everything that people don't want to use anymore and that is being saved from becoming waste actually. And so, for example, if you make an appointment for bulky waste disposal, you have the possibility to make a note for the municipal waste company to let them know that either everything or maybe only some items are still reusable. And the waste company will then come with 2 different vehicles. One is for the waste and one is for the reusable stuff. And the reusable items are then being sold in a special store for very low prices. And then you also have the possibility to drop off your reusable items by yourself, but especially if you have larger items such as furniture, it's just great. It's just a great possibility to have your waste company come and pick them up. And a system like this exists in some German cities, but mostly only in the larger ones. And so that's definitely not a standard. Yeah, on this slide, I just wanted to show you how waste is in Kiel is being used. And you can see that the biggest part, nearly 50%, is recovered or recycled. But you can also see that around 25% is incinerated in our local incineration plant. And that's still way too much. But then in Germany, I think it's because of some laws that have been that we have very low rates for landfills. So I think that's something nice, but the incineration rates are still way too high. Yeah, now coming to my rather dry part of my presentation, it's about the new legislations for single-use plastics and circular economy. So in recent years at the European level, a number of new regulations have been enacted and existing ones have been amended, all of which are related to packaging, circular economy, and single-use plastics. And we will first have a look at 3 of these new directives, which are particularly important. And then I will present you how these directives have been implemented into German law. So the first new directive is the amendment of the so-called Waste Framework Directive. And this was in 2018. This directive states minimum requirements for the extended producer responsibility. So, for example, financial or organizational responsibilities. And it also provides a framework on how this extended producer responsibility should be supervised. It also contains economic instruments and other measures to create incentives for the application of the new of the zero waste hierarchy. And the member states are free to choose which of the measures they want to implement. So that's something they can decide according to their needs. And together with the Framework Directive, the Packaging Directive was also amended in 2018. And here we now have higher targets for the recycling of packaging. And for example, yes, around 65% of all packaging waste must be recycled by 2025. So that's one of the, of the new part of this directive. And then the member states also have to implement measures that promote the reuse of packaging. And then another very important new directive is a so-called Directive on the Reduction of Impact of Certain Plastic Products on the Environment. And this one is better known as the so-called Single-Use Plastics Ban. And we will now have a look at which items are actually banned. And afterwards, I will come back to the other two directives that I just mentioned. So since July 2021, so that's fairly new, several single-use items made from plastics are prohibited in Germany and also all over Europe. And that's, for example, to-go cups and fast food packaging that is made from styrofoam, but it's also disposable tableware, straws, stir sticks and cotton swabs, and balloon holders. So all of these items made of single-use plastics or from styrofoam are not allowed to being sold anymore or produced anymore. And other items, for example, items made from plastics or with components of plastics are still allowed. So I think, that this law could have gone a little bit more far, but for example, plastics within filters of cigarettes or to-go cups are still allowed, but they have to be equipped with a new label that actually warns consumers about environmental damage and then also informs about proper disposal. And the producers of these items also have to pay for cleaning measures. So, for example, if the streets have to be cleaned, for example. Yeah, and I already mentioned the Waste Framework Directive, and this directive meant that the already existing German law for circular economy was also amended. So here, what is very important for me, because I'm working for the city of Kiel, is that the public procurement is now obligated to give preference to ecologically advantageous products. So for example, recycled products and the product responsibility is also extended to a new so-called duty of care. And this duty of care is intended to oblige companies to actually handle returns in a way that they do not become waste. And this is intended to combat the unnecessary destruction of returns. So I don't know if it's the same in the US, but in Germany, if you order something online and then you return it, it's often the case that these returned products are being disposed because it's more cheap than putting it back into the store. And with this law, this should be forbidden. And the overall product responsibility includes that the producers are responsible to design the product in a way that they are repairable, durable, reusable, and resource efficient. And they also have to contribute to the cleaning costs of the streets. And yeah, other waste prevention measures are, for example, the reduction of waste during the production processes, or also the labeling of products which are critical raw materials, so that customers won't throw them away in the residual waste, but dispose them properly. Yeah, the European Packaging Directive was implemented into German law by the new Packaging Act in 2019. But since then, it has also been extended several times. And the producers of packaging of certain materials have to participate in the so-called dual system. And that's what I will come back to on the next slide as well. So this means that they have to pay a license to make sure that the packaging waste is collected separately and recycled. And then there are a few other changes in the Packaging Act that are not yet enforced, but that will become more and more important in the next few years. And so, for example, from 2022 onwards, there's a ban on lightweight plastic bags from stores. And also from 2002 on, there is a bottle deposit on all single-use plastic bottles up to 3 liters. So right now we already have a bottle deposit system, but there are still some bottles that are excluded from this. And with that new directive, this should be changed, and all plastic, like all single-use plastic bottles, should be included in that deposit system from 2022 onwards. And another very important regulation that will start in 2023 is that from 2023 onwards, caterers and delivery services and restaurants will be obliged to have reusable containers, at least as an alternative to single-use plastics. And so that's really nice and important for me as a zero waste project manager, because we have so much waste because of takeaway foods. And yeah, in 2 years, they will be forced to have reusable containers, and so people will have the choice whether they take this alternative or if they want to have a single-use one. And then another amendment is that from 2025 onward, single-use plastic bottles will have to contain at least 25% of recycled products. And yeah. So here I just added some background information on the dual system in Germany. So the predecessor of the new Packaging Act from 2019 was actually the packaging law from 1991. So for me, the dual system is just very normal because I grew up with it. But I think it's still something very interesting for countries that don't have something like that. And this was the very first time ever that the manufacturers had to take care of the recycling and disposal of any packaging or material that they sold. And when this law came, the manufacturers had have joined forces and established the so-called dual system Germany. And the label that was first installed was the green dot, which you can see on this slide, and which is probably very famous worldwide. And the manufacturers actually pay a license fee to the dual system depending on the weight and the material of the packaging. And they then have the possibility to make it transparent to customers by using this label on their products. And the customers then know that this packaging is has to be collected separately in one of these yellow containers that I showed earlier. And so that's how they invented the dual system and the green dot. And in the beginning, there was really just this one dual system with the green dot. And nowadays, there are actually several different ones. So that makes it a little bit more complicated for customers to understand.
We had a quick question, Tatjana, just for clarification. We just had a quick question. Is the 2022 ban on lightweight plastic bags German law or an EU requirement?
I'm not 100% sure because when we have new European directives, we it's always up to the countries on how they, like, which measures they implement. And in Germany, at least, this is how we implemented it. But I don't know if that's something that everyone has to do, or if that's like a decision that Germany made. I will have to look that up.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I could not answer that question, but yeah, I'm not an expert in all these law details. Yeah, but now I will end the rather dry presentation part with all these laws and directives, and would like to present you some existing projects to avoid single-use plastics in Kiel. So one of our projects on single-use plastics that we implemented reusable to-go cups here in Kiel. And in Kiel, we have around 22,000 single-use to-go cups that are used in Kiel every day. So that's around 913 to-go cups per hour. And that's just so much waste. And so that's why in September 2019, we started our initiative to install reusable to-go cups. And we have now 110 bakeries, canteens, and cafes that participate. And they all use the same system for reusable to-go cups. So this is why you can buy your beverages in one cafe, for example. You pay €2 deposit, and I think one is for the lid and one is for the cup. And then after you drink it, you can return it to any participating store. And yeah, this is how the system works right now. Unfortunately, just a few weeks after the system was implemented, the Corona crisis hit us. And so many bakeries and stores decided that they will not accept reusable cups anymore because they wouldn't take them back because they were afraid that they might have the coronavirus. And yeah, so they said it's not possible to use them anymore. But also before the Corona crisis, it was not very well accepted. Yeah, which was a little bit confusing for us because it was it is such a simple system, but I think it was just not famous enough and people didn't really know about it. And then Corona came and nobody would give them away anymore. So yeah, that's one of our projects. And I think maybe once the Corona crisis gets a little bit better, the system will probably or hopefully work well in order to avoid single-use coffee to-go cups. And then another initiative that we had, it's already some years ago. It was a roundtable that started in 2015 on an initiative which was called Plastic Bag Free. And yeah, there have been 3 meetings with 30 representatives from businesses, politics, and administrations. And they started a huge awareness campaign. So I think they used mainly posters and postcards to encourage citizens to abandon plastic bags. But this was very successful. So since then, the stores that gave away single-use plastic bags, have been reduced. And so this is also one of our existing initiatives here in Kiel. And then I will come back to what I'm working on 5 days a week. So it's our zero waste strategy, in which we also implemented measures in order to reduce single-use plastics in Kiel. As I said earlier, our zero waste strategy consists of around 100 measures in these 5 different sectors. And we are still right at the beginning of the implementation phase. So this is why most of our measures are not realized yet. And also single-use plastics is not a focus of our zero waste strategy, because the measures and goals that we implement or that we defined, they all deal with waste prevention and resource protection in general. But of course, we have also several measures that deal more or less with single-use plastics. And these measures I would like to quickly present to you. So, for example, for our sector waste system transformation, we want to optimize the waste separation and waste prevention in the seaports, because as I said earlier, seaports are very, we have a lot of seaports here in Kiel, and they have a lot of waste too. And we also want to consult cruise ships on waste prevention, because we know that most of the time cruise ships don't even separate their waste. So that's something that we would like them to do. Then for the public administrations, we set ourselves the goal to establish public waste dispensers, so that people can just carry around their reusable bottles and fill them up in public, and don't buy single-use water bottles, for example. And then we also want to ban single-use products in sport facilities in Kiel. For the households, we want to get a financial promotion of cloth diapers, because diapers, like single-use diapers, make up around 10 to 15% of the residual waste in Germany. And so that's really one type of waste that could be reduced very easily if people would use cloth diapers. And they are very expensive in the beginning if you want to buy them. So we want to have a financial promotion to encourage people to buy those cloth diapers. And then we also want to develop a zero waste shopping guide that helps people understand where they can buy products without packaging or with reduced packaging. And then for the educational institutions, we want to have a reusable cup deposit system for hot beverages, similar to the one that had been implemented in the public cafes, etc. We want to have waste-free canteens. And also here we want to have water dispensers, so that pupils and students can just refill their own bottles. And then in the industry, trade and event sectors, we have a couple of measures. So for example, we want to support reusable boxes for takeaway food. That's what I mentioned earlier, until 2023. Every restaurant will be obliged to have reusable boxes as an alternative for takeaway food, and to encourage restaurants to participate here. We want to support this as a city of Kiel. Then also we want to encourage stores to give discounts if you bring your own packaging. And we want to have reusable packaging solutions in drugstores. And also our farmer markets should function without any single-use packaging. But then again, all of these measures are still theoretical. And as we only just started with our implementation phase, we will implement these measures in the next few years and decades. Yeah, I think I'm a little bit over time, but I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm very curious about your questions.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We do have a couple of questions. And one of them is the 2022 ban on certain plastic items does not include banning single-use plastic bags. Was that a deliberate omission? And if so, why?
Good question. I don't know why they are not forbidden. Like I would like those to be forbidden too. But yeah, I'm afraid I probably won't be able to answer detailed questions on these European laws because I'm like really project-based with my zero waste project. So I'm not an expert in these laws, and I don't know why they did not forbid plastic bags. Because I don't know, in Germany, we don't have such a big issue with plastic bags, but it's of course also an issue here, especially because of the location close to the Baltic Sea. They end up in the Baltic Sea if they are not being disposed properly. But I know that in other countries, and yeah, they have these plastic bags in the supermarkets where the staff just puts every groceries in, and then you come out with like, I don't know how many plastic bags, but with many plastic bags. And that's, for example, something that doesn't exist in Germany. So in Germany, you just take your items and have to put them in your own bags. But still, it's an issue here too. And I would like them to be banned as well. I don't know why it's not the case. Is that actually something that should happen in the US? Because you said that the ban on single-use plastics is also in discussion.
Yeah, in Northern Virginia, or in Virginia, we just passed a law with taxing single-use plastic bags. So you'd have to pay a 10-cent fee. So that's where, and it's by locality. So that's just starting right now. It'll be interesting to see. District of Columbia has had that for 10 years. Dale, did you had a question? And also it looks like we had some great comments from Mr. Kramer in, do you want to bring that up, Dale?
Yeah, the question was, Tatjana, Kiel's doing such a lot, and it's great to see that German cities have the possibility to adopt and implement all these policies. Tatjana, what else would you like to see? I imagine in terms of policies advancing zero waste management in the city, any restrictions in particular that you would like to get rid of? I imagine that's state, local, but also EU level. And then probably best for you, Debbie, to answer this. What is standing in the way of action that's equivalent in the United States?
For the single-use plastics?
In general, all the policies that Kiel is implementing that we were just exposed to.
Well, I think one issue is the idea of extended producer responsibility, which is, I think, the major difference between the US and what's happening in Germany, which is moving forward in some states, but those are great points. And we also had another question that from Kurt Moser. Are the rules more restrictive for single-use plastics at farmers markets? And why is there a separate distinction?
I don't think that the rules are more strict for farmers markets. Actually, I don't know if it's the same in other countries too, but here in Germany, farmers markets are already quite waste free. Like they are not waste free, but they don't have as much waste as in the supermarkets. But here in Kiel, we see that most of the retailers also still have plastic bags or at least paper bags. And that's something that's just not necessary at farmers markets because people are just used to bring their own bags. And so we want to ban these single-use plastics and stuff here. But they are just like in our zero waste strategy, they are just one very small part, but we did not put a focus on farmers markets. They are just one of many measures that we want to take.
I had a couple of questions, and I'll keep my eyes peeled on the chat. I won't take over, and I lost them because I'm taking notes at the same time. Let me. So what do you think is the most effective element or policy from what you've worked on? What do you think has been kind of the most effective or surprisingly easy versus surprisingly difficult to have implemented or developed from your plan?
Yeah, so what I think is really essential is something very basic. It's building awareness, because what we see is that we really have to have awareness building campaigns and always have public campaigns telling people how to separate their waste, how to prevent waste. And this is the most effective part. Like, you can have a lot of policies, but if people don't understand how they should recycle or separate their waste, then they just don't work in practice. And so building awareness is one of the most essential parts, I think, and always communicate zero waste and waste prevention. So that's something very essential, and that we also focus on our zero waste strategy.
And what do you think is the most effective way? Like, what medium seems to work the best, or do you use different ways of communicating to different populations in your community?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. Like, we have so many different parts of the population. Like, the young generation is probably best reached if you use social media and videos, and just reach them on their daily channels like WhatsApp and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and whatsoever. But then the older population, they just don't use these media. So you would still reach them via newspaper articles and posters in the streets and all these kind of things. So it always really depends on who you want to reach. And so you have to decide which is the best medium. And I think for most of the measures, you have to use many different media to reach everyone that you want to reach.
Great. We have another question. How do we boost sales of upcycled single-use plastic products?
Can you repeat that?
How do we boost sales of the upcycled, materials that are being reused, that have already been reused versus virgin products, plastic products? Does that not make sense?
The question is how we.
Do you want to unmute and ask your question yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually from India. I'm talking from Pune. And one of my friends is actually an entrepreneur, and he's converting single-use plastic to fashion accessories. And one of the biggest problems that he faces is actually not gathering the plastic, but how do we market eco-friendly products, and in particular like single-use plastic products, to generate sales? Because the main problem for him is not getting raw material, but convincing people that this is okay to use. So is there any strategies that are being used in Germany for this?
For me, that's a very interesting question, because it's more or less the opposite from what I observe. Because here in Germany, at least maybe I live in this bubble, where sustainable people used to live in. But here, like all my friends, etc., they are really interested in finding these products that are not like virgin materials, but are made out of PET, etc. So I didn't really observe this in Germany, that people do not want them and use raw materials instead. But here I think it's more like a movement where people really get into it and really want to have products that are being reused or secondhand and made out of used plastics. And I don't know, maybe I think it's probably the same in the US, right? Like on shampoo bottles, etc. We have little signs saying made out of 100% recycling plastics. So they really market their products with these signs. And I think that people really like that. So for me, it's very confusing that your friend is struggling with that, because I think there's this movement and hopefully it will grow in the next years too. But I don't have an explanation why people wouldn't buy them.
Yeah, I guess it's a different way, different viewpoints of different communities. Well, this has been amazing. If no one else has other questions, I think we can wrap up. And Tatjana, thank you so much. This has been so helpful. Everyone, I'm going to stop the recording